On today's Locked On Giants podcast, Emory Hunt of CBS Sports and Football Game Plan joins the podcast to talk Giants draft, top prospects from the All-Star games, and much more. That's coming your way next here on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. My name is Patricia Traina, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find all my written work. And as always, welcome on into my Blue Coat community members, my newcomers, my everydayers, and everybody in between. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And today we have Emory Hunt. You asked for him. He's back. He's been a very busy man. He's been at just about all the college all-star games, including the Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl. I know he's got another one to go yet. And we're going to pick his brain on some of what he is seeing with these prospects. Emory, my friend, welcome on in.
Always a pleasure, Pat, around this time to talk draft, talk Giants ball with you.
Same, my friend. It's always good to see you. And Emory, a lot of people want to know about the quarterback class. You know, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward are being mentioned as like the cream of the crop, if you will, the only two guys on whom, you know, probably the teams will have a first round grade on. I remember talking to you last summer, I think it was, and you said this class is a lot deeper than what people are maybe giving it credit for. I want to get your impressions. Having seen some of these all-star games, having seen some of the games, do you still feel that way? Is this class maybe a little deeper at the top than people are giving credit for? Or has maybe one or two, you know, has maybe Ward separated himself from Sanders? Or where do things stand?
Well, it's fascinating because when we talked about this, the expectation was certain guys would be in the class. And now we've seen a lot of guys have decided to go back to school and transfer for another year. So it takes away some of the guys at the top, but the top two still remain. And during the time we talked, for me, it was Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, Jalen Milroe was the top three. And it still remains that for me in terms of guys I would trust taking in round one. You know, when you talk about Shedeur Sanders, stylistically, he's more like Joe Burrow. And I've said that since 2021, since his freshman season at Jackson State when he was playing senior level ball. Cam Ward is more like the Patrick Mahomes stylistic type. The same things you're hearing about Cam Ward, you heard about Patrick Mahomes coming out of that Texas Tech offense and how he plays and how unorthodox it is. You see the same things from Ward, who has starred at three different places, at Incarnate Word, Washington State, and most recently at Miami. Milroe, we talked about how he has made the progressions from the first time we saw him in 2022, where it looked terrible. Then we saw him the following season get significantly better, where they needed him to win games, and he was able to answer that call, outplay Carson Beck in the SEC title game. Then we saw him this season kind of have an up and down year because he's going through a new offense with Kellen DeBoer. So Milroe to me would be the one at three where I can, talk about the third spot of the quarterback rankings, where I would like to see him paired with specific coaches, one of which being Brian Daboll, if they're not able to get the Shedeur Sanders or the Cam Ward in this class.
We hear a lot about Jackson Dart and how he's supposedly shooting up the draft charts. What have you seen from him, and do you think all the hype is worth it?
It's funny because if you only watch the bowl game and the one throw in the bowl game, that's all people are. That's the foundation of the hype that we're currently seeing. And so we've seen this all throughout the whole, football season. Everyone does, for whatever reason, they just don't like Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. So they tried Carson Beck. They've tried Garrett Nussmeier. They've tried Miller Moss. They've tried Drew Allen. They've tried Kyle McCord. They've tried Will Howard. Now we've reached a part of the cycle where they're talking about Jackson Dart. It's funny because they don't mention Brady Cook, who has been playing really good football. That is He was banged up all season, but still played fine despite being banged up. That's someone probably on day two that I would take way before the other quarterbacks that I mentioned. And so I just know we see this every year, every cycle, and it's just Jackson Dart's turn to get, spin around. Everyone is hyping him up, but it really stems from the one throw he made in a bowl game where he rolled to the left and threw it back across his body, threw it to that side, completed a deep ball downfield. But to me, Dart has always been what he has been, solid quarterback, but coming out of that offense, you got to wonder how much of that will translate. And we've seen quarterbacks come out of that Lane Kiffin offense from that particular program not have the easiest of transitions, even though everybody is different. Dart can play. He's good. He's a good athlete, but he's not a first round talent.
Emory, a lot of, or one of the knocks on Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. Sanders, I think, has been in 4 different offenses in 4 different seasons, I believe, and 2 different teams. And he's had multiple receivers, obviously. Ward has also played in, I think, 3 different offenses with different receivers and stuff like that. How much do you think that either hurts them or helps them as far as their draft stock goes?
I think it helps them because think about it. They're going to have to learn new offense when they get to the NFL, and they have experience in playing in new offenses and how to get acclimated right away. And I think that's a great question because some people may look at it as like, well, the transition may be slow. Nah, the transition is going to be quick because they've had to do it year in, year out. And we've seen quarterbacks that had to have done that excel, i.e. Jalen Hurts. And we saw what happened the first time he had back-to-back offensive coordinators, he got them to the Super Bowl. And so, but he's been acclimated to, working through different offenses and to Shedeur Sanders' credit, one of which was Pat Shurmur, whom he had with him at Colorado. So I like the transition for both guys. This is something that changes what they know, and this won't be any different.
With the Giants retaining Brian Gable and that offense, who of Sanders or Ward is the best fit in your opinion?
Either one, to be honest, because they both bring something different to the table. Shedeur, we've seen him operate in a similar offense, gun offense. I think what was going to help him is something that he really hadn't had, maybe arguably since his freshman season at Jackson State, and that's a run game. So he won't be asked to drop back 40 plus times a game and subject himself to either holding the ball long or getting sacked or whatnot. The run game is going to help him out tremendously wherever he goes. Ward gives you a little bit of the wild play in terms of the arm talent. And he's more athletic than Shedeur, so he can kind of give you a little bit in terms of like buying time and scrambling. He's not like a Lamar Jackson runner or Jaden Daniels runner, but he's someone that can, escape the pocket, buy time, and has a cannon of an arm, i.e. similar to how Patrick Mahomes plays and his athleticism. So both work well because they're both excellent quarterbacks. They both have the accuracy. They both have the wherewithal to understand where to go with the football. Shedeur is a little bit more safe with the ball as opposed to Ward, but Ward has those wild plays that you can't coach as well.
I mean, a lot of people, and I'm guilty of this too, they look at Ward and Sanders and they say, okay, where would these guys have placed if they came out last year? And having thought about it, I don't know if that's necessarily a fair comparison. I think, if you're talking about comparison, you got to go forward as opposed to backwards. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but that said, it's been said that next year's draft class is going to be a lot deeper for quarterbacks. It's still taking shape, obviously, but if you're the Giants, they need a quarterback, and obviously they're going to get a veteran bridge at some point. But if you're the Giants, do you say, okay, you know what? Maybe we wait until next year and we pass on these guys, or do you just say, you know what? We're in we got to win now. John Mara has said he's running out of patience. Let's just take a guy. And do you roll the dice and say, let's hope that this guy is going to be our guy for the next 10 years?
I'm laughing because we talked about this before why they say that, right? So, but based off my grades last year, Shedeur would have been 2 behind Caleb Williams, and Ward would have been 4 behind Jaden Daniels. So they were right there in terms of, if they would have, and Ward was going to come out last year. He actually declared, and then about a couple of days later, decided to go back, got the NIL money from Miami, went and improved his stock, to be completely honest, because I know there wasn't as much hype around him in terms of the scouting community now then that it is now. So he actually went back and improved his stock. Shedeur was right there and was consistently doing the things that you ask a pro quarterback to do. So I don't buy that where people say they would have been quarterbacks seven behind, JJ McCarthy, who was throwing 9 passes a game at a loaded Michigan, program. So when people say that, they just pretty much expose themselves. The talent is a talent. And so these dudes would have been in that top 4 and be sandwiched in between, or in between the outside of Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels.
Hey, Giant fans, the big game is almost here, and there's no better way to make it even more exciting than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded, Prize Picks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. Here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Prize Picks even has a free pick for the big game, where one of the starting quarterbacks only needs to throw for 1 yard for you to win. Pair that with one more correct pick, and you're cashing out. Check out the promos tab to tail any of the super sweet Millie winners' big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Download the app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Emory, it's been said that guys like Abdul Carter of Penn State are rising up the draft boards, that Travis Hunter is rising up the draft board. How do you kind of see that, if you were to give me your top 5 guys based on value, based on grade, where does everybody kind of slot in right now?
Well, those 2 definitely got to be in the top 5 because of the tremendous ability that they have. Hunter, that's the one scenario that I've talked about before where if the Giants are not at 3 able to get Shedeur or Cam, let's say the Browns, who hold the wild card here at pick 2, if they decide to take a quarterback and it's one of those 2 and Tennessee takes one at 1, I would be hard pressed to pass on Travis Hunter, because he's an excellent receiver, which helps out the Giants, gives them 2 outstanding, talents at wideout. And he also helps that cornerback because he takes the ball away and gives them what they need on that side of the ball, a playmaker, a guy that can turn the ball over. And it's fascinating when, I think you can start him at both, because to be honest, you can start at corner, and he's probably going to play less snaps in the NFL anyway, because essentially he could be a number 3 as your wide receiver. He's going to see 45 snaps maybe on offense. That's significantly less than the 100+ snaps he was getting in college a game. So he can do both. But on defense, where if you're a quarterback, when you throw his way, you're literally throwing to a wide receiver. So he can take away one half of the field based off that fact alone. Abdul Carter, you wonder how healthy he'll be coming off the shoulder. I know he had the shoulder in the playoff game. That's the one thing that throws a lot of this for a loop. We won't know much about these guys in terms of testing, because the longer you've played now, college football season ended January 20th. So now these guys got to start training. If they do that, some guys may have played in the All-Star game that ended, last week. For some, we may not see them work out at the combine. We may not see them, participate in medical testing. I know some people have opted out of that before. So this is unique because we haven't had a college football season extend this long. But that does not change the fact that the top 4 or 5 guys are the 4 we've talked about before. And that 5th guy can always be a wild card. Could be an offensive lineman, could be Mason Graham of Michigan. You know what I'm saying? It could be someone like that. But based off those 4, that you can't go wrong with any of those 4, in my opinion.
So if you're the Giants, you're on the clock at 3, and you have let's say one of the quarterbacks is gone. Let's say Cam Ward is gone because he's the one who I think has been linked mostly to it, to that team. What do you do?
You take Shedeur Sanders, and you be happy. Again, any one of these quarterbacks will help the Giants immediately. And I've always said this, and I'll say it again, just for the record: it doesn't take long to turn around a football team. We've seen this time and time again. Sean Payton stepped in and got the Saints to got the Saints to the NFC Championship game in year one with a team that had the second overall pick. Washington had the second overall pick, NFC Championship game. It's about how you attack the draft, which is free, consistent talent upgrade, cheap upgrade, and how you attack free agency. But it also depends on the coaching staff being able to identify talent. Because if the coach can't identify talent, none of the talent you bring in is going to work. And so I don't think the Giants are that far off as people may make them out to be. Because if you get a quarterback that's the steady hand, even if it's a rookie, they can go far. So yes, if Ward is gone and Sanders is somehow there, take him.
Okay, now that being said, Emory, the Giants need a lot of help on defense. I think we can agree that they need defensive line help. They probably could use another cornerback or two on the perimeter. They probably could use a little safety help if they lose Jason Pinnock. So I want to start with defensive line because it's been said that that class is just ridiculously deep. What are your impressions of that class? And or maybe some day 2 prospect that maybe, if the Giants don't go D-line in round 1, which I don't think they will, or some prospects that maybe you should keep an eye on as being a fit to them?
Well, it's always tough to gauge on when and where teams are going to go. But I will say this about the defensive line. There are some guys that I really like that I saw, let's just say at the Senior Bowl. They need another Leonard Williams, someone that can kind of bring pressure and play the run from the defensive line. Because we know they have 2 solid edge rushers in Thibodeau and also Burns, but they need another one next to Dexter Lawrence. And someone like, Deion Walker out of Kentucky, kind of would be similar type of Dexter Lawrence, but can collapse the pocket, which commands a double team, which opens things up for Burns and Thibodeau. And I'm looking at here like someone like Walter Nolan. I don't know how far he goes up in the first round or whatnot. He's a good one. We watched someone that brings great twitch off the edge, and Darius Alexander out of Toledo, who had a great Senior Bowl. These 2 Georgia tackles that I saw at the Shrine, Nazir Stackhouse, looks the part, plays the part, and Warren Brinson. These are defensive linemen that can really, collapse, cause you to squeeze, and then opens things up. So those defensive linemen, to me, again, I'm still breaking down the class, but just off what I saw recently, those names popped up consistently that I think that can help the Giants up front. Safety wise, you just look at, I like how I'm looking at my notes here again. Trader from Maryland was a good safety. I saw him play really well. Another safety that we saw at the Senior Bowl, Keandre Jackson, who I actually saw at the Hula Bowl. So he's put together back-to-back really good postseason all-star games. And those type of guys give you a chance to play consistent football on the back end. We talked about corner. Obviously, Travis Hunter is there, and those quarterbacks are going. You got to take them because that's your corner right there. So there's going to be opportunities here. Upton Stout, probably a day 2 guy, shorter guy, but competed well at the Senior Bowl. Everywhere you saw a wide receiver, you saw him draped over the wide receiver, playing the ball, doing a great job. So he's out of Western Kentucky. This is a real good opportunity to have a lot of draft picks if you're the Giants.
Yeah, is there a possibility you think, does it make sense for the Giants to trade down out of number 3, or do you don't think
Travis Hunter is right there? That's your floor. If Travis Hunter doesn't go 1 or 2, do not trade out of 3. Take Travis Hunter if the quarterbacks are gone, because you can't. It's no different, Pat, than if like you're on a playground and you're picking teams. If I have a chance to get the 3rd prospect out of 5,000, I am not trading down. I am taking the 3rd best prospect in the country. So whether that's whatever position you want to pick at the top, because you get the best option to help your team. And Travis Hunter is a jewel in this class. And so if the quarterbacks are going, I am not passing up the opportunity to take a guy that can help me on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I tend to say, don't get cute, but I could see scenarios where maybe they might try to get cute. I don't think it would behoove them to do that, given, like I said, that this is kind of a mulligan for both Joe Shane and Brian Dable, but, stranger things have happened. Now, Emory, I want to go back to the offense for a moment here because I suspect we did not see the full Monty, if you will, of the Giants offense, everything that maybe Brian Dable envisioned as far as, being vertical and whatnot. And excuse me. And some of people will say that's the quarterback play and everything like that. But that being said, you mentioned that oftentimes teams can turn it around quickly with good quarterback play. So if they land one of these guys, how quickly do you think, A, they could hit the ground running day one, and B, can they get the Giants, to be more of a vertical threat than they have been in the past?
Absolutely. Because think about this. We've talked about this before, where you're watching the Giants and Wan'Dale Robinson is a good guy underneath. Someone like Slayton has the acceleration to get deep down the field and does a good job in tracking a deep ball. We know someone like Jalen Hyatt is a deep ball assassin, can really get to lift the top off the defense. Just had to hand nobody throwing the football. And oh, by the way, we know what they have in Malik Neighbors that can win at all three levels. Then you get back Theo Johnson, an athletic tight end that can help you in the passing game also. The Giants have receivers. We just hadn't been able to see them because they didn't have the quarterback that can consistently get them the football. Case in point, someone that's just willing to throw the football there. Look at how different the passing game looked with Drew Lock as opposed to Daniel Jones, as opposed to Tommy DeVito. Lock was letting it fly. So therefore you got to see guys in the past like, wow, this guy's making plays. With Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, you're going to get that. And when you have a quarterback that everyone acknowledges that is good, you're going to get the best of the receiving core, because one thing I like about those guys, those two guys I mentioned, Ward and Sanders, there's no favorite receiver. The open guy is the favorite receiver. So if you get open, you're getting the football. And it entices other people to want to come play. Free agents will now want to come and sign with the Giants because they have dudes that they know can get them the football. So the Giants definitely have some pieces already. Pound for pound, me and Coach Gene Clemens, who's a big part of your show, we talked about this before. If you were to rank, this was preseason last year, if you were to rank the Giants receiving core within a division, where are they ranked? Would you rank them ahead of Washington? And pound for pound, you probably would say the Giants have better receivers than Washington. Washington has Terry McLaurin. Giants have Malik Neighbors. I say that's Giants. You side with the Giants on that one, although McLaurin is a very good pro. But outside of that, you can go pound for pound and be like, Giants probably have better receiving options. Sands the tight end position than Washington. So they're not that far off. I keep saying that because it makes that much of a difference if they get the quarterback in place.
Hey, Giant fans, if you love going to live events, you're going to need to check out Game Time. Game Time offers an amazing selection of tickets at competitive prices, and they have made it easier than ever before to get tickets for your favorite events with their Game Time Picks feature, which filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, saving you all kinds of time. Game Time also offers flash deals to save you even more money on select events, and they make the ticket buying experience so easy. Plus, the app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. So go on and take out the guesswork from buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's the Game Time app, and redeem that promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. What time is it? It's game time. Hey, Giant fans, if you're looking to join an exclusive community of Big Blue Faithful where you can discuss the team and receive inside information in a toxic-free environment, then you need to check out the Locked On Giants Blue Crew community. Members get access to our exclusive by invitation only Discord channel where we can talk with one another, ask questions, get breaking news, and so much more. Plus, as part of the Locked On Giants Blue Crew, I text exclusive updates and info directly to your phone, and members can text back to me one-on-one. So come see what it's all about with a free 14-day trial. And when you use our promo code Blue Crew, you will get your first 2 months after your 14-day trial ends at 50% off the regular monthly price of $4.99. If you don't like the service, cancel before your trial ends and you'll owe absolutely nothing. For more information or to register, visit joinsubtext.com/LockedOnNYGiants. And again, that promo code to enter in the top of the screen, Blue Crew, BLUECREW. Text and data rates may apply. Please see your carrier's plan for details. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the elephant in the room because this is a position that I think a lot of people are not really talking about when we debate which quarterback for the Giants. Offensive line. The Giants are still kind of building up that offensive line. I think, and if they can keep Andrew Thomas on the field, he's a keeper. John Runyon Jr., John Michael Schmitz, they've got to come back from injuries. Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle, I think, is good. They've got to figure out if Evan Neal is a guard and whatnot. That being said, based on how this offensive line is built and what they still need, is there an advantage for one of these quarterbacks in the draft to be a better fit based on what the Giants have on O-line, or does it not matter?
That's funny because in this situation, Pat, it does matter because what we heard about Shedeur Sanders the last 2 years, offensive line just is not that good, right? They were better this year, significantly better, but he was taking hit after hit and was still productive, still didn't turn the ball over. I want to say last year he had 20, 30 something touchdowns with 4 interceptions, despite getting sacked the most in college football. Played every game, was up and battle tested, right? This year they had a better offensive line, so he did better. And so Ward, we talk about his escapability, that neutralizes any offensive line you got in front of you because he's going to be able to buy time, get himself out of dodge, scramble, and find someone deep down the field. So in this scenario, it doesn't matter because one has played with not the best offensive line. One has the athleticism to get out the way, and make the offensive line look better. And that's the thing. When you don't have a guy at quarterback, it puts all 5 of those dudes up front in the crosshairs because that's what I kept telling folks about Daniel Jones is that it's not the right guard. It's not the left guard. It's not the right tackle. It's not the 6th offensive lineman, the swing guy. It's not the blocking tight end. It's the dude who's not getting rid of the football quickly or getting rid of the football on time or not being the athlete that he is and getting out of dodge. And so that's why you can't, like I've said this before, the offensive line is the greatest scapegoat in this country. Anything that's wrong with this country, blame the offensive line, because that's what everybody does. And so, but you have 2 guys in this class that do a great job of playing above the X's and O's, as I like to say, especially with regards to offensive line play. Those dudes the Giants have are capable enough for them to have functional offense, and that's all you can ask for.
Emory, are there any sleepers that maybe we're not talking about, regardless of the position, but maybe a position of need for the Giants that maybe he should be paying attention to in the coming weeks?
We talk about where the Giants sort of got, caught last year, in terms of like depth, offensive line, and also linebacker. Bassa from Oregon was outstanding. His name is Jeffrey Bassa. Like, talk about someone that can cover. There was a play at the Senior Bowl where he was running with a receiver down the seam. The Giants haven't had that type of athleticism at linebacker in ages. So that's someone that could probably help them at the second level. Offensive line depth is always going to be key. If you can find guys that fit your scheme, this is when the back end of the draft matters. And, guys that check all your boxes in terms of like type of person they are, blah, blah, blah. But do they fit our scheme? And that's what the Rams do really well. So the Rams are, that's why they were able to give up 1st-round picks for known commodities because they felt as though they can trust their scouts and trust their scheme and their coach to get the guys that fit what they do well. So you see some linemen. I know he's probably going to go now in the 1st round based off what he's done in Mobile, but Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State was a great one. Ozzie Trapillo, I remember his dad played for the New Orleans Saints, and Boston College is one of those sight unseen places where you kind of trust their offensive line. So that's someone that you can kind of get in there, and you can't go wrong with any one of these offensive line players from North Dakota State. Marcus Ware is from Montana State. He had a really good Shrine Bowl, and so he's someone you could probably get on day 3. But those guys are good football players, probably scheme fit, and if the Giants can find depth on the interior of their offensive line, it goes a long way in helping any one of the quarterbacks have success.
All right, Emory, now final question for you. Obviously, the combine's coming up, pro days are coming up. Are there any guys right now that maybe the expectations were high, but maybe in these all-star games, they were kind of like hit and miss, and they had this opportunity going forward to really raise their stock or affect their draft stock? And who are some of the names that maybe are on the radar for teams that are still not really sure what they have in these guys if they were to take them?
That's a great question, because the big elephant in the room is Jalen Milroe. In an all-star game setting, you're probably not going to get the best of a Jalen Milroe because he's not going to utilize what makes him a special talent, and that's his explosive ability to run the football, because that enhances everything. And you saw him at the Senior Bowl kind of work through some footwork things, first time being on the center, turning his back to defense, all those things that you kind of take for granted with everyone else. So a lot of these quarterbacks were fumbling the snap. Him, Dart, the Canadian kid, Taylor Elgersma, because they've never been under center and have to tie their timing with the snap, the footwork with just handing the ball off. And so you can see him working through some things, but what will start to skyrocket his stock, Milroe, that is the fact that, he won the William Campbell Award, which is the academic Heisman. So if you think about, him having, I'm a member of the National Football Foundation, so I have a College Football Hall of Fame vote, and I've gone to a William Campbell Award ceremony. And Pat, when I tell you the majors that these guys major in and the GPAs, it's insane. Just to be nominated is an honor of itself, but to actually win a doggone thing, and you're there with guys from the Ivy League, guys from, division high level academic Division III schools like MIT, and here you are with a 4-point whatever and God knows what kind of major, and to show that you're able to do that while playing quarterback at a high level shows you you're coachable, shows you you're focused, shows you you understand what's the most important things, and that's going to weigh heavily in the minds of these scouts and decision makers when they talk to him. And from all accounts, he's a great kid, military kid, so he's disciplined. So that's someone, although the All-Star game wasn't the best, the person is going to sell them all, and his improvement year over year is going to sell them on him. And I think that's where a guy like that, at that position, you may start to hear more about him going in the first round based off what we hear at the combine, and as more people start to talk to him and understand how dedicated he is to the craft.
Emory, I feel like we're just getting started with the meat and potatoes of the draft. I know, even though college football's been going on since August, I feel like we're now getting into crunch time, like it's boiling down. Before I let you go, any final thoughts about, the combine coming up? Any prospects maybe we didn't mention?
I will say this. We talked about, again, having seen the Canadian prospect Taylor Elgersma out of Wilfrid Laurier back in May. Now, when I went to that All-Star game, there were 2 other quarterbacks that had a lot of praise. That were highly ranked, 3 actual quarterbacks, but 1 didn't participate in the All-Star game. That were highly ranked by the CFL scouts. But during the week, I kept getting impressed by Elgersma's ability to throw the football. And so it was shocking to see him get the call to the College Gridiron Showcase, because that's always a big thing. They usually have a lot of Canadian prospects in there, but having a Canadian quarterback was huge. So he went down there, performed really well, got the call up to the Tropical Bowl, which is the following week, and I saw him there as well. And he put on a show. I want to say the first play, he just let it rip deep down the field, accurate deep ball, which got him the call up to the Senior Bowl. So he participated in 4 All-Star games, 2 of which were in the States. And you saw him get better at each stop. Because playing in Canada and then playing in the United States is like 2 different things. Like, it's going from playing in a parking lot to a classroom, talking about the terms of the field. And so for him to start to get that experience, and there were a lot of teams, that had a lot of, talk about him after his practice. He had 4 teams that he had to split his time up with talking to at the Gridiron Showcase and also at the Tropical Bowl. Then he gets to the Senior Bowl and plays well. So that's someone that shows you the benefit of going to all these different All-Star games. You get to really follow the story and see who's talking to who, and not surprised when come April or May he ends up on a roster or even gets drafted. So that's one that people need to keep an eye out for, as well as all these other Canadian prospects that have to perform well. But to keep all of this in perspective, just make sure you subscribe to the Draft Guide, footballgameplan.com/2025 Draft Guide. Every year is fantastic. It's going to be fantastic again this year. I'm working my way through it now. We're done quarterbacks. We've done with running backs. We're breaking down receivers right now. So we're working through it. Always available late March, and you can get it on my website.
All right. We'll make sure we post a link to your website. It is a very comprehensive book, and I tip my hat to you and Coach Gene and everybody else who contributes, because you guys do your homework. I know a lot of people give you flack because they don't agree with what you say, but you do your homework. And one of your greatest, and you've had many great forecasts over the year, but I always remember how you sang the praises of Lamar Jackson when everybody was saying, oh, he should be a wide receiver. You kept saying, no, this dude's going to be good. And you hit it.
Might have his 3rd MVP. It's crazy. And the Giants have that situation with a Shedeur Sanders too. The tweets are there. I've called him the Black Joe Burrow since his freshman year. I was blown away at how good he was for the neck up as a freshman. It literally blew me away because I didn't know what to expect, because I didn't see him play high school ball. But the fact that and then you find out he was coached by a trainer with John Brady. And so then it made sense, but it was like, this dude actually has the goods. And Ward does. I spoke to Ward in 2021 when he was at Incarnate Word when I had this football game plan show, and he was locked in then. And I'm glad he transferred to a Power 5 school to get that opportunity, because otherwise they would just try to blame it on small college football. But he was a stud when I spoke with him. So the Giants in a good spot. I just wish they were picking at 2 instead of 3.
Yeah, I wish they were picking at 1 instead of 3, but they had to go win that game, right? So, what are you going to do? But anyway, Emory, thank you so much for all the insight. My gosh, I could sit here and talk ball with you for hours on end. I know you've got a limited time here. Hopefully we can have you back on after the combine, just as we're getting into the nitty gritty of things, especially after free agency starts, and we kind of see how teams are starting to think and how teams are starting to shape their off-season plans, because that will probably have an effect on what they do in the draft, I would think.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it as always.
All right, my friend. All right. That's Emory Hunt of Football Game Plan, also of CBS Sports. We'll put a link to his website if you want to check out his draft guide, which I recommend, by the way. It's very, very good, very comprehensive. Does a great job. Giant fans, I want to thank you for tuning in and spend part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. We will be back tomorrow with an all-new episode of Locked On Giants podcast. Until then, have a great one, everybody.